In 1999, Morpheus offered Neo a choice between a red pill and a blue pill. In 2018, this country fractured between red and blue. In 2022, I'm here to tell you that if you really want the truth, more voters are neither red or blue. Yet, they have no representation, no choice, and no options. They have to choose between candidates chosen by the red people or the blue people. I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress as an American, as in red, white, and blue. I'm a veteran, an activist, and a small businessman. I'm asking you to join me in reminding the professional politicians in Congress who their bosses are. I support ranked choice voting, campaign finance reform, and a verified voter information system, all so we can stop having the best politicians money can buy. It's time to elect a veteran who will work for you, no matter what color they want to label you. Please go to electesrati.com and learn more. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. In Jurassic Park, you thought those little baby dinosaurs were cute until they turned into out-of-control carnivores. That's sort of what happens to government when we elect people based on very expensive advertising campaigns and propaganda. I'm David Esrati. I'm a veteran and a small businessman running for Congress. You don't want professional ad people and pollsters to sway your vote. All those hot-button issues like gun control, abortion, borders are all politicized to stop you from voting rationally. And thinking rationally seems to be in short supply these days. Most Americans have been voting against their own best self-interest for a long time because we've allowed money to buy our leaders. 1 million Americans died in the last 2 years because our leaders couldn't lead. It wasn't that hard. Mask, distance, test, and then vaccinate. In an instant, we had billions to spend on healthcare for COVID, when for years we've been told we can't provide healthcare for everyone equally in this country. That's an unintended consequence of the pandemic. If you think about it, our government can pretty much do whatever it wants, or what the people who buy our politicians tell our leaders to do. We also had a ton of money to prop up businesses. The next thing you know, it turns out that a living wage was not only possible, but necessary. As a small businessman who won't sell you out to corporate interests and lobbyists, I can tell you that it's time to fully understand the consequences of companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google and their effect on small business, and to remind you that small business is the #1 creator of jobs in this country. So this next election, don't trust this ad or any other political ad. Do your homework and think before you vote. It's time to put this ad man in Congress because I know that the best advertising is based on the truth, not the size of the budget or payola. Or you can just vote based on who has the money to buy their way into Congress and live with the consequences. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. Hi, I'm David Esrati, and I am running for Congress, and this is my live stream. And I do this because Mike Turner hasn't had a town hall in 20 years. He doesn't talk to his constituents. Today, I am joined by Nancy Kiehl, and I'm hoping Alex will switch cameras so that you can see us both. There we go.
There we go.
And Nancy Kiehl is going to run as a write-in for State District 5. I'm going to let her describe what that is. Her opponent will be State Senator Steve Huffman. That's Dr. Steve Huffman. But introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Nancy Kiehl, and I am running for Ohio Senate, District 5. And District 5 is now, includes parts of Butler, all of Preble, half of Dark, all of Miami, and a good portion of Montgomery County.
So we have yet another gerrymandered unconstitutional district that
Absolutely.
is built for a Republican to win.
Yes.
Because this is what happens when you let billionaires interfere with local politics, and they did this over 20 years ago. The Koch brothers did a strategy across the entire country to set ways that they could put Republicans in power and start with their own rules and laws that they liked, not ones about you. And the easiest way to do that is when you have the politicians picking their voters.
Right.
And how many times did this go to the state Supreme Court?
My understanding is 5 times.
And what happened each time?
Well, so I guess the first three times it was sent back, and then the fourth time the Republicans sent the same map back they sent in the third time, and then the fourth time or the fifth time they sent in the same map that they had sent in the third and the fourth time.
They were in contempt of court.
Yes, absolutely.
Contempt of court 5 times. You or I try that. Try contempt of court just once and see how fast before you land in jail. But that has not been the modus operandi of the Republican Party, who is in charge with a supermajority in Ohio thanks to this. Now, you could be a Republican, you could be a Democrat, but I think you have to understand that when the politicians are working for somebody else, they're not working for you. So this is what happens, and it's incredibly difficult to change this. Okay, we have a real problem because it costs a lot of money to run for office. So the money flows into their pockets. The Democrats haven't figured out a way to flow the money into theirs. And Nancy here has to reach a bizarrely shaped district, which may encompass multiple media markets, making it much more expensive than a compact district, and reach all these voters and tell them to write her in.
And fill in the bubble.
Yes.
So if you have to not only write my name down, which is only putting me on as a candidate, you actually have to choose me, so you have to fill in the bubble. So there's...
And the funny thing is, if you write her name in, okay, you would think they meant to fill in the bubble, but no, because of our really screwed up system of Board of Elections, you have to fill in the bubble and then write the name. And you can even spell it wrong, but just to make sure they know, how do you spell your last name?
K-I-E-H-L.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you write K-E-E-L, they should let it fly, but
it depends.
It's questionable.
Well, I think that always boils down to what is the voter's intent.
Right.
And that's always been a questionable process because a lot of Board of Elections do not want to do voter intent.
And just to let you know, the boards of elections in the state of Ohio are run by the 2 major parties with no oversight by voters whatsoever. The only election official you elect is the Secretary of State, and he's not real bright. So you have a problem. But let's talk about Dr. Steve Huffman, your opponent. What's he famous for?
Well, from what I can see, I know that he's famous for some of his racist remarks, but I also know that he's famous for his draconian statements and policies concerning pro-life, anti-abortion stance.
Okay.
So he's one of them that's been with the heartbeat bill, as well as the most recent one, policy or which is the celebration day to celebrate June 24th when the Supreme Court put down Dobbs, or Roe v. Wade with Dobbs. So he wants to have a celebration day for that.
Yes.
So his grandchildren can remember this day and celebrate it. That's what his intent is.
Let's go back to his most famous thing, which is during a hearing in 2020, when we were at the height of the COVID pandemic crisis, this medical doctor, and I'm going to quote just to make sure, because this is not me speaking, this is Dr. Steve Huffman. I understand African Americans have a higher incidence of chronic conditions, and that makes them more susceptible to death from COVID. But why does it not make them more susceptible to just get COVID? Could it be that African Americans or the colored population do not wash their hands as well as other groups, or wear a mask, or do not socially distance themselves? Could that be the explanation for why the higher incidence? For this, he got fired. Okay, and rightly so, but not from his Senate seat, from his job with Team Health. Now, I'm sorry, medical doctors should understand things a little better than the average person when it comes to all of that, but Steve's racist. He also is a big supporter of medical marijuana. Do you have any positions on medical marijuana?
You know, I have some. I mean, I am for medical marijuana in that if we can get people so that they can get more people out of jail so that we're not.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the main reasons. But I don't know.
You don't know? Well, I suspect the main reason Steve Huffman likes medical marijuana is because they set up a system in Ohio where, and that reminds me, I got to shut off my stuff too, so that doesn't happen. But yes, medical marijuana has basically awarded franchisees to sell and grow pot in this state, and they pay large sums to the state, and they lobbied hard and supported, setting up this system that once again was shown to be discriminatory. Not very many blacks that are selling it or growing it, and they ain't selling it themselves. So we're back to let's just make money for rich white folks, which is what Steve Huffman's all about.
And Boehner.
And Boehner,
right.
Who, well, we'll leave poor John alone, even though he's a big supporter of pot now. Some other funny things that he's done. His brother or his cousin, who is Matt Huffman, the Senate president, he named him to the Senate's health panel. This was after the insensitive, morally bankrupt statements about hand washing. And to be clear, Steve Huffman can do all kinds of other damage just on his own. Are you aware that he voted or to introduce a bill to eliminate income tax in Ohio, state income tax in Ohio, Ohio Bill 327?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, we already have. I mean, and at the municipal level, we already have the cities and the county are strapped. So
right.
for the state to even consider that is beyond reproach.
Well, so. It's not just that part that's the problem. The problem is we already have an insane patchwork of tax laws that are almost impossible for small business to manage and control. And the state tax, the state income tax, was one of the ones that was easier to manage. And, it was across the state. It was bulletproof. So now you already have places like townships where there is no income tax,
right.
Except when places where they've created JEDs to tax poor people who are working at places like Austin Landing and at Walmart. And at, what is it up, what do they call it, up on 75 there? They have a JED for, it'll come to me, I'm sorry, up by Poe Avenue, up that area.
Just what?
The shopping mall there where Walmart is right off 75
right.
up by where Imes was. Yeah, up there. Butler Township, they've created a JED so they can tax workers, income tax, in an unincorporated area. And it's ridiculous. And down at Austin Landing, it's even more ridiculous because only the people that work in single-story buildings are taxed at 2%. If you work in a high-rise, an office worker, and you work for somebody like Thompson Hine, the law firm, no tax.
Wow.
He's anti-death penalty. He wants to stop the death penalty in Ohio. And that goes, hand in hand with his strong positions on abortion, according to him. But, what's your opinion on the death penalty?
I think we should abolish the death
penalty. You should?
Penalty. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with that because there are some people, I believe, that deserve the death penalty. And I'm going to state the number one is people who commit treason and go up the Capitol steps trying to hang the vice president. There is an incident, but that's a federal law, and it's on the books. I believe we should use the death penalty. I also have a real problem with people we know who created chaos and mass murder, and we've got lots of witnesses. Sometimes it's death by cop, like what we had in the Oregon district shooter event. But had he lived, I have no problems with immediate death penalty. Not 20 years of it. No, you take an assault weapon, you're not part of a well-regulated militia, and you go shoot people, I say we shoot you and be done with it. I don't see any point in it. When there have been multiple injuries, we've terrorized our community, we don't need these people around. I don't think putting them in jail forever does anybody any good. It's actually inhumane. That's my position. But we're here.
Yeah, no, I get it. But
So-
I think that, every human being needs, not that they're going to be put back out on the street. I mean,
Right.
they're there for life.
Okay.
But there's
Well,
got
then
to
it's
be
life
some-
without any appeals and the rest of it for some people.
Well, yeah,
because
absolutely.
it
but-
gets ridiculous to spend millions of dollars going over these things over and over for people. Again, I am only in ones where we have clear, unmitigated, no questions, you did it things.
Yeah.
I believe in the death penalty then. The other times, I don't believe in it. I don't think it should be a punishment for questionable crimes or, crimes of passion or whatever else. There are the two instances in my perspective. One is treason, and the other is terrorism. I just have no toleration for it
No,
all.
I get it.
Because they're going to be in prison. What are they going to be doing? Bragging about how many people they shot. I'm sorry. That doesn't fly. And sticking them in solitary, that doesn't fly either.
No, solitary is not a good thing either.
So let's talk about his stance on gun. Do you know about his gun control positions?
I know what the Republican Party's gun control.
Which is?
Well, basically anything goes at this
Anything
point.
goes.
Anything goes.
So-
and it's really about creating the support system for the unregulated militias in this state and hate groups.
After we all said do something, what did they do? They
Yeah.
made it legal
Yeah.
for anybody to carry a weapon concealed. Anybody. No background checks, no anything else.
Right.
And I'm sure Steve's in favor, though I didn't find this, for arming teachers. But what's your position on arming teachers in school?
Well, so he is in support of that.
He is.
Yes. he
How
is.
did I?
So yeah, he is sponsoring, co-sponsoring that
Right.
as well, and so that was something that I've spoken to a number of teachers along the way, and they're just even though it says that can be decided by the local school boards, a lot of teachers are just terrified by this new law, and so it's a question of, do I leave that particular school board, that district,
right.
or do I fight it? So some of them are fighting it.
And I haven't had a chance to talk about this before, so I'm going to take a moment just to remind people that they talk about, we'll hide the weapons and biometric triggered safes. Remember, these are the kids that figure out how to hack
Absolutely.
every computer, game, everything else. We got a hacker sitting right there behind us running the board. When he was 17, that would have been a challenge to him.
Absolutely.
And there is no need for anybody to have a loaded weapon anywhere on school premises, even police officers. That's just on the side there.
Well, and also I think it's really important, to think about, if you have safe communities, then your schools are going to be safe. You're not going to need these laws where you're going to be arming teachers and fortifying schools and things like that. It's insanity, because it's happening everywhere. It's not just in our schools.
Right.
So
People who don't know you, what have you been doing with your life? How are you a qualified candidate other than getting your name on the ballot, in this really screwed up election,
Right.
which made it really hard for a lot of candidates to get on the ballot because we had, remember, 2 primaries and we couldn't figure it all out.
right. Well,
But fill us in.
So for let me see. I moved to this area I've been lived in Clayton for the last 20 years, and I worked at the Library of Congress. That's what got me to Dayton. I was a film preservationist, and then I got married, had children, and I became like a Girl Scout leader and a 4-H leader, and worked. I was a roller derby mom, and so you just kind of learn all these organizational skills, because you're basically herding cats, right, so to speak. So, but in the last 4 years, I've been working with the Clergy Community Coalition since the demolition or the closure and demolition of Good Samaritan Hospital.
And that has something to do with being a derby mom. Demolition derby, right?
Not demolition, roller derby mom. But so that has enabled me to just really kind of delve into what is government, what is city government, what is county government, what is state, federal, and just recently, so the Clergy Community Coalition filed a federal investigation concerning the closure of Good Sam, and that just shut down. And that was a debacle because Premier Health Partners hired the former Civil Rights Director of Health and Human Services as their lawyer in D.C. So once the new Michael Reardon, the new CEO, came on board, he basically shut it down. So it was we got a 2-page letter after 3 years of working on this claim. And so then from there, we took it to the United Nations. We just wrote a report to the United Nations. So, just kind of sadly, seeing the failure of government made me realize that we've got to make government work because there are people, constituents, citizens, counting on government to work.
All right. So I got to do some housekeeping things. So real quick, are you a member of the clergy?
No.
Are you?
No.
Okay, you're not ordained as
No.
anything. Okay. So I want to say hi to Jennifer, who's here quite often, and Jennifer's in the hospital right now, and I hope she gets out soon and she's feeling good. We also have Doc Truman, who I don't remember being here before. He says you can ask the Board of Elections for a list of the approved write-in candidates. They have to provide you one. This will help to ensure spelling. And he's got it with a hashtag Usher for Ohio. But I'm going to fill you in on this, okay? So if you go to the Board of Elections site, there's actually a listing of all the candidates for each county. Or you can request a sample ballot by typing in your address, and that will show you what your ballot actually looks like. And it will only have the bubble and write-in candidate for positions where there are approved write-in candidates. So you can't write in Mickey Mouse, it won't get counted, even if you do fill in the little bubble. You can vote for, there's like 4 other sets of people running for governor, none of which I've heard anything about, or for certain other people. There are single opponents, like in your case. So you could find all of those out. Now, in the sample ballot that you see, I do not believe it will provide the name of the write-in. You have to go back to your list of candidates and find out. Now, Nancy got in this a little later than the game, and so far, like if you go to Ballotpedia, you're not listed there yet.
Not yet. And in this week, I'll be getting on there.
Okay.
I'll be signing up.
Ballotpedia is an open source project, sort of like Wikipedia, that has all the candidates. And it's a good place to go. There's also one called Vote USA and some other things to find out the details. So
the League of Women Voters as well.
And the League of Women Voters will have their guide eventually. So there are all these other assets, but the problem is so many people who go to vote, that's the first time they've seen the ballot, and they just look for a D or an R. And that is not enough because they can get there and all of a sudden they say, I could have had a Democrat and I didn't know.
Yeah.
So Jennifer says thank you, and the nurses are getting sick of her telling them to get registered and who to vote for. Way to go, Jennifer. Just piss those nurses off, and I'm sure they'll take great care of you. Anyway, so back to...
Why? Because they're... Huffman is endorsed by the nurses?
No, she's just everybody she talks to, she tries to talk about politics.
Oh, gotcha.
That's just the way Jen works.
Gotcha.
So let's talk about Good Sam, because you and I both know more than the average person who's counted on the news media. But the real travesty here is, okay, we have seen an abundance of new ERs and mini hospitals pop up all over the region, usually right next to a major highway.
Exactly.
So
It's going up the artery. Yeah.
they go up the arteries. But we have what's called a duopoly here with Kettering Health and Premier. And then Children's is tolerated just so they don't get in too much trouble for antitrust. And it's growing like crazy too.
Huge.
And we're spending gazillions of dollars on these things, and a lot of it is funded with federal money. So what happened was, the brilliant minds at Premier realized they had this brand spanking new hospital wing they built, and it had 2 extra floors that were empty that they built for it. And pre-COVID, pre-tornadoes, they decided they didn't want to deal with Good Sam anymore, which had been funded by you, the taxpayers, for the last, since 1920s. We have been giving them free property, no property tax. They're treated as a nonprofit. So we've been funding them all these years. They decided we don't need to be here because it's only 5 miles to Premier.
Premier North.
Premier North, and it's also not that far from Miami Valley.
Yeah.
And so they decided they were going to close it down. Now, that might have been okay, except for one thing. And this is the thing where I fault the local politicians for caving. And by the local politicians, I mean Nan Whaley, the felon Joey Williams, Matt Joseph, and Chris Shaw. Not Darryl Fairchild, he wasn't there yet.
Mims.
And Jeff Mims. The 5 of them, let them place a restrictive covenant on the property saying nobody else could build a healthcare facility, and then used our tax dollars to tear it down.
Yeah.
Nobody else could come in. They wanted to destroy the hospital and all that infrastructure and all those hospital rooms already set up for a medical facility so nobody else could come in. This is not the first time this has happened, because there used to be a hospital right over the river from Miami Valley called St. Elizabeth's. Miami Valley spent millions of dollars to go in there and take sledgehammers to X-ray machines, to MRIs, to oxygen lines. They gutted the place. They just destroyed it intentionally so nobody else could come in. And they allowed them to have some medical doctor's offices there later after somebody had to clean the place up and try to sort through it.
Yeah.
And the heart hospital originally, which is that outbuilding now that it's an outpatient surgery center for...
That was at Good Sam, you're saying?
No, over by St. E's. That went out in the front.
Right.
Originally, they were going to go in another area, and the neighborhood said, oh, no, we don't want this. And so they moved it out. And again, we don't want competition at all. There are some doctors groups that have worked in this community and tried to set up independent outpatient surgery centers, their own network, so that they don't have to pay the corporate overlords. And they've been run out of business. Had trouble made for them. They've had their businesses being made more difficult because basically we've got the mob running healthcare in this area. Another interesting example of that was, that green building with a curve at the corner of Monument and Stewart? That was the Five Rivers Health Insurance Company building run by Dr. Mike Irvin.
I'm learning so much.
Mike Irvin was a physician who saw an opening because there were only 2 health insurance companies at the time, United Healthcare and Anthem. That was it. So what he did was he set up his own health insurance company and went and skimmed off the biggest clients out there. He went and signed up the city of Dayton with their 2,000 employees, Dayton Public Schools with their 3,000 employees. He went to GM with 4,000 employees, and he made a huge dent, and all he did was negotiate a better deal with Premier and with Kettering on providing services. And Anthem and UHC had a cow.
Right.
So what'd they do?
They pulled.
They bought him out.
Yeah.
They bought him out, sent him off with, a fat check. And then he pretended to be the shadow mayor of Dayton for a number of years before moving to Scottsdale, Arizona. So what we have is corruption. It's plain and simple. And so they tore down Good Sam, and then we had the tornadoes with all those people homeless. And had that building still been standing, we could have moved them in there. They had cafeteria, cooking facilities,
absolutely.
they had health care, they had rooms, they had beds, they had everything you would have needed for disaster relief, and it wasn't there.
And the path of the tornado went right over Good Sam.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that whole area, the 14 miles was right there.
So, again, bad dealings by politicians screwed things up. And the reality is, there might have been other healthcare providers that wanted to move into this region to compete because it's lucrative. So Mercy never had a chance. Cincinnati hospitals, these other ones that have been expanding as well, no joy.
But these network hospitals, they have a compact.
Oh yeah.
So you can't move into our area because
And Huffman's all in with
make it
this
happen.
game too,
Yeah.
except he's a little on the outside now because he can't work for them.
Yeah.
But he can always go back to being coroner because coroners are in deep demand, and he worked as one for a couple years. So if you
he'll always find a job.
if you kick him out of his job,
Yeah,
he'll get another government job.
He'll get another job.
And paid more than what he makes now, except that we know that what they make in the State House is nothing compared to what they make by stuffing money in their back pocket by lobbyists and PACs and the rest of things. So, again, the community said, we want a hospital here or an ER. And they showed an example of one in Beaver Creek.
Right.
Less than a mile from the new Soin ER and tower.
Right.
There's Miami Valley building a hospital. So during this conversation with the community where the new liar for hire, the CEO, Reardon, is standing there, he said, well, we've already got all the plans drawn. I said, sure you do. You got the one you did in Beaver Creek. You just swap the plans, plop it in here, and boom, you got a hospital.
Absolutely.
Falling on dead ears.
Yeah.
So we have a major area where there are people who have high rates of serious diseases that need access to emergency services without access to emergency services. Thank you, Republicans. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we are half hour in. You got anything else? Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Flies when you're having fun.
All right. Do you have anything you'd like to say to people, or do you have any questions for me? Since I'm running for Congress.
Well, I'll tell you. I just want to say I appreciate your coming to the town hall when Reardon was there, because you were very spot on, and it was enlightening. The whole event was very enlightening as far as when a corporation has their mindset, they are not going to listen to the community. They are going to do whatever they want. And so that was very telling that evening. Not that we didn't really already know, but it was definitely brought back to home. Well, I think that it's great that you're running. I wish you great luck, as far as running against Mike Turner, because he's really got a hold on congressional district. Is it 10?
10.
Congressional district 10. But as far as myself goes, I'm very concerned about the fact that Ohio does not have choice, not only reproductive health and for women and for young girls, but also for choice as far as making sure that women who want to have children have all of the networks and needs support systems there as well. And then,
but you're more than a single issue candidate.
Oh,
correct?
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm also really concerned about was when I realized that Huffman was running unopposed. That was one of the reasons why I ran, was because there was no candidate no Democrat. And I went home and I started investigating, and I realized that of the 17 Senate races, 4 Republicans were running unopposed, and of the 99 House races, 17 Republicans were running unopposed. So, the mix-up or the shenanigans, the juggling that took place with all the gerrymandering and redistricting and the last election.
The second 2 primaries that cost us $25 million.
Right, exactly. It really was very confusing for. I mean, I think there was one candidate who was like, his block was gerrymandered out, so or redrawn out. So it's we really have to be ready for 2024 because we've got to have enough Democrats running in these races.
Okay, so I don't think the problem is just Democrats or Republicans, and I don't think fixing the redistricting is going to solve anything. I think it's time that we reduced all the laws that prevent ballot access by those unclassified independent voters to be able to run without having to get ridiculous number of signatures.
Right.
So we get more people on the ballot, and we move to ranked choice voting, where you prioritize, this is my first choice, my second choice, and your third choice. So you're not sitting there and holding your nose while you pick between me and Turner. Because, everybody knows I am the worst candidate you could ever vote for, because I'll actually stand up and say things that need to be said. That we don't want. This whole myth of there being some sort of credentials for being a politician, like going to law school or being a doctor or, a lawyer, or whatever, is horseshit.
Oh.
The idea of American democracy was that people could choose who their leaders were, not their leaders pick their voters and then run the country the way they're being told to by their corporate masters. So you have to start wondering about guys who... Huffman term limited out as a state rep. Now he's term limited. This will be his last term as a state senator. And then he'll go on to some lobbyist position or something else. But the reality is we need something better.
Absolutely.
All right. You have any other questions or anything?
No, I'm good.
You're good? You don't have anything else to say? Okay. So
go ahead. No.
You can take this video and you can post it on your networks and do that.
Absolutely. You
can come back again if you want. We are going to work on some things together to surprise everybody, and that'll be coming up soon. Her district is insane. It's not compact. It's not easy. So the only way this is going to work is if anyone who watches this tells their friends about this, and then they tell their friends, and then they tell their friends, and we get that network effect working, or we're doomed.
Yeah.
Okay? We're just going to get Huffman. And that is...
Turner.
Right. But, I'm going to say flat out, you need to be an educated voter. And one of the things that's going to have to change, especially if we move to ranked choice, is having some sort of bona fide voter information system where you can go and find these things out easily and research your candidates and see how they voted, find out who gave them money. It's all got to be nice and simple and easy. And that's why I set up the Modern Policy Institute a long time ago to try to bring these tools to be available for the public, and why I have Reconstructing Dayton for working on Unigov, so we don't have 30 jurisdictions with 30 banana republics all trying to say that they're doing something when all they're doing is duplicating services that really are embarrassing, because we've got 500,000 people in Montgomery County and literally 20 mayors, 18 school boards. It's absolute malarkey.
Right.
There is no need for this kind of overhead. You don't need to cut taxes. You need to cut out political subdivisions and all these lines on the map and start working together for the common good. There you have it. We'll be back next week, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. sharp. Thank you, everybody that's been watching. And Jennifer, I do hope you get better soon. Were there any questions on Facebook? I don't. Nope.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. And again, this is Nancy Kiehl. You should vote for her if you live in Matt Huffman's district.
Yep.
Fill the bubble. Nancy, you can spell that. Kiehl, K-I-E-H-L.
Right.
And you're bingo.
Cool.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. We're done.
All right.
Hi.